It was 2:30 in the middle of the night in the morgue of a large government hospital in America, Chicago General Hospital. Outside, heavy rain poured down, and with every crack of thunder, the old morgue building trembled. Dr. Edward Brown, a 42-year-old experienced forensic pathologist, walked inside, his white coat swaying slightly. He was of British descent, but was born and raised in America. His eyes looked tired, but his mind was completely alert. His assistant, Roger Harper, a thin and nervous 28-year-old, was already standing near the door. "Sir, this case is very strange," Roger said in a trembling voice. "What happened, Roger?" Dr. Brown asked casually while putting on his gloves. The girl's eyes are still fully open, and her face, it's smiling like she's not even dead. Dr. Brown walked toward table number 7. A 19-year-old girl's body lay there. Her name was Eva Christina. She had come from a small village called Chuck 47/B. There were no wounds on her body, no blood, no signs of violence. Just a beautiful, fair-skinned girl with slightly raised lips and completely open eyes. Dr. Brown stepped closer. A crease formed on his forehead. There was none of the lifeless emptiness in her eyes that is usually seen in dead bodies. He picked up the scalpel and prepared to make the first cut on her chest. The moment the blade touched her skin, Eva's left pupil moved slightly. Dr. Brown froze. "Roger, did you see that?" Roger shook his head nervously. "No, sir." Dr. Brown took a deep breath and began again. This time, the girl's lips moved slightly, as if she was trying to say something. Dr. Brown put the scalpel down. He moved toward her head and stared deeply into her eyes. A sudden jolt ran through his body. In the pupil of Eva's left eye, a tiny figure was clearly forming. That figure was Dr. Edward Brown himself. The same beard, the same tired eyes, the same white coat. But the lips of that tiny figure were moving, and a faint, distant voice echoed, "Don't come." Dr. Brown stepped back. His heart was pounding violently. Roger asked in panic, "Sir, what happened? Why is your face turned pale?" Dr. Brown said nothing. He quickly tried to close the girl's eyes, but they wouldn't shut, as if some force was keeping them open. Gathering courage, he picked up the scalpel again. This time, as he began making the Y-shaped incision below her neck, the entire body trembled slightly. Roger screamed, "Sir, it's moving." Dr. Brown steadied himself and said, "Be quiet. This happens due to postmortem rigor mortis." But he himself knew this was not rigor mortis. When he opened the chest, the sight inside froze his mind. In place of Eva's heart, there was something else. A small, human face, alive and beating like a heart. Very small, about the size of a fist. That face was looking at Dr. Brown and smiling. From its mouth came a faint, cold voice. "Now it's your turn, Dr. Brown." Suddenly, all the lights flickered. Darkness swallowed the morgue. Roger's scream echoed in the void. And then, in the darkness, from Eva's lips, came a soft, horrifying laugh that Roger's scream was still echoing against the walls of the morgue in the darkness. Dr. Edward Brown quickly pulled out his phone and turned on the flashlight. The white beam illuminated Eva Christina's exposed body once again. Her chest was still open, and inside it, that small human face was still beating. Its eyes were now fully open, staring directly at Dr. Brown. "Roger, turn the lights on," Brown ordered. With trembling hands, Roger moved toward the switch. When the lights came back, the scene had become even more horrifying. That small face was growing, like a balloon inflating. It was expanding outward. Its skin was stretching out from Eva's open chest. The beard on the face was now clearly visible, exactly like Dr. Brown's. "What is happening, sir?" Roger's voice was almost breaking. Dr. Brown stepped back. "Stay back. Don't touch it." But it was too late. Suddenly, Eva's body raised its hands. Her lifeless arms now looked flexible, alive. She sat upright. From her open chest, that growing face had now reached almost a normal size. The face spoke. The voice was exactly like Dr. Brown's, but with a faint feminine echo within it. "You cut me. Now I will cut you." Eva Christina's body gave a strange smile. Then her head tilted to one side. But that face, now fully emerging from her chest, was still alive. Dr. Brown immediately pressed the morgue's emergency button. The alarm blared. Within seconds, 2 security guards, Thomas and Michael, rushed inside. "Sir, what happened?" Thomas asked. Before Brown could answer, Eva's body slammed down from the table and stood upright on the floor. From her open chest, instead of blood, a thick black fluid began to ooze out. Roger slid down against the wall, gasping for breath. Michael raised his rifle and aimed at the body. "Take one more step and I'll shoot." But the body didn't move forward. It simply turned its head toward Thomas and smiled. Suddenly, Thomas's body jerked violently. He screamed and collapsed to the ground. His eyes widened unnaturally. A strange, choking sound came from his throat, as if something inside him was trying to get out. Dr. Brown saw the skin on Thomas's neck moving, as if something beneath it was pushing outward. "Michael, get him out of here!" Brown shouted. Michael tried to lift Thomas, but the moment he touched him, Thomas's mouth snapped open, and from inside it, a small hand emerged. That hand reached out and grabbed Michael's throat. Chaos erupted in the morgue. Dr. Brown grabbed Roger's hand, and both of them ran toward the small office inside the morgue. Once inside, Brown slammed the door shut and locked it. Roger collapsed against the wall, crying. "Sir, what was that? That girl was dead, right? Then how is this happening?" Dr. Brown looked at his hands. They were trembling. Slowly, he said, "I think this is not a normal postmortem case. This is something else." Screams echoed from outside. Michael's voice, Thomas's distorted choking, and that horrifying laughter coming from Eva Christina's body. Dr. Brown picked up Eva's postmortem records from the table. The report read, "Cause of death, unknown. Villager's statement. The girl had been saying for the past 3 days that someone else was living inside her. She had willingly given herself for postmortem." The paper slipped from Brown's hand. Suddenly, the office door was struck hard. A voice came from outside. It was Eva's, but now it sounded exactly like Dr. Brown. "Dr. Brown, you open my chest. Now shall I open yours?" Roger looked at Brown in terror. "Sir, or does she know your name?" Instead of answering, Dr. Brown pulled out a surgical knife from his coat pocket. There was determination in his eyes. "Roger, listen. Even if I die, we cannot let that body leave this place. It has to be burned." The door was struck again. This time, cracks appeared in the wood. Another voice came from outside. This one was Thomas's, but with Eva's eerie echo. "We are only getting started. Within 3 days, this entire hospital will be ours." Dr. Brown looked at Roger and said slowly, "Now you tell me, did you touch Eva's body tonight?" Roger's face turned pale. With trembling hands, he raised his right hand. On his wrist was a small, fresh cut, and from within that cut, a tiny eye was staring out. The small eye on Roger's wrist was still blinking. Its pupil was completely black, staring directly at Dr. Edward Brown. "Sir, this is inside my wrist." Roger's voice was breaking. He kept shaking his hand as if trying to get rid of an insect. Dr. Brown quickly grabbed Roger's hand and examined it closely. The tiny eye was growing. The skin around it was moving, as if something inside was trying to push its way out. "Don't move," Brown said sharply. "If you scratch it, it will spread even more." Outside, chaos still filled the morgue. The screams of Thomas and Michael had turned into muffled, distorted sounds. Occasionally, Eva Christina's soft, smiling voice could also be heard. Suddenly, the office door shook violently again. This time, a large crack appeared in the wood. Dr. Brown grabbed a heavy steel stand from the table and placed it against the door. Then he turned toward Roger. "Listen, Roger, we don't have much time. I'm going to have to cut your hand off." Roger stared at him in terror. "What?" "No, sir. Have you gone mad? If we don't cut it now, this thing will spread through your entire body. Then you'll become one of them." Tears filled Roger's eyes. He pressed himself against the wall. "Sir, it will hurt." Brown pulled out a large surgical knife from his medical bag and sterilized it with alcohol. "I can't give anesthesia. Just grit your teeth." He held Roger's arm firmly and prepared to make a deep cut just above the wrist. At that exact moment, the office lights flickered again and went out. Roger's scream echoed in the darkness. When the lights came back on, the sight made the ground seem to vanish beneath Dr. Brown's feet. Roger's entire right hand was gone. Only his severed, bloody stump remained at his wrist. Instead of blood, a thick black fluid was oozing out. Roger's eyes had turned completely white. He was smiling, just like Eva Christina. "Sir, you're too late," Roger said. But his voice was now a mixture of Eva's and Brown's. "Dr. Brown, step back." "Roger, are you still yourself?" Roger raised his severed arm. From the cut, a new small face was emerging. That face was Roger's own, but its eyes were Eva's. "We are all becoming one, Doctor." Roger stood up, his body twisted unnaturally, as if something else was controlling him. Dr. Brown tried to run toward the door, but Roger lunged forward and grabbed his throat. His strength was inhuman. "You thought postmortem is only done on the dead?" Roger said with a smile. "This is just the beginning. This girl, Eva, she sacrificed herself. She said whoever cuts her will become part of her." Brown's face turned red. He was losing breath. With his last effort, he pulled out his knife and stabbed Roger in the arm. Roger screamed, but there was pleasure in that scream, not pain. As Roger stepped back, Brown rushed to the door and ran outside. The morgue now looked like hell. Thomas and Michael were sitting on the floor. Their chests were torn open, and from inside them, multiple small faces were peeking out. All of them were smiling together. Eva Christina's body was now sitting on the table. Her chest was empty. The face that was once inside her was now hanging from her neck like a pendant. She looked at Brown and said, "Dr. Brown, you performed my postmortem. Now shall I perform yours?" Dr. Brown threw open the main morgue door and ran outside. Behind him, Eva, Roger, Thomas, and Michael all began chasing him. Their footsteps echoed across the cold floor. When he reached the hospital's main corridor, he saw two nurses on night duty standing in a strange way. Their eyes were white, and they were smiling. One of them spoke softly. "Doctor, did you complete Eva's postmortem?" She said that within 3 days, the entire hospital. Dr. Brown didn't stop. He kept running toward the exit. Behind him, the entire morgue had come alive. The rain was still pouring heavily. He ran toward his car. As he reached the car door, he suddenly felt pain at the back of his neck. He touched it. There was a small, fresh cut. And from inside that cut, a tiny eye was staring out. Slowly, he smiled. His smile was exactly like Eva Christina's. Doctor Edward Brown opened the car door and slid inside. The smell of rain and blood filled his nose at the same time. The small mark on the back of his neck was burning now like acid. He looked in the mirror. On his neck, a tiny eye had clearly formed. It was blinking, and in its pupil, he could see his own terrified face. "No, this can't be happening," Brown muttered to himself. He started the car and sped toward the hospital gate. The rain was so heavy that even the wipers were struggling to keep up. Behind him, the morgue door burst open. Eva Christina's body stepped out. Along with her came Roger, Thomas, Michael, and the two nurses. Their bodies moved unnaturally, as if something else inside them was controlling them. As Brown's car exited the gate, he glanced in the rearview mirror. They were all standing in the rain, staring at him, and all of them were smiling. The pain in his neck was intensifying. He gripped the steering wheel with one hand and rubbed his neck with the other. Suddenly, he realized he was smiling too, without his will. He drove at high speed through the empty streets of Chicago. His home was on the north side, but on the way, he changed his mind. He wouldn't go home. He decided to go straight to his old friend and senior forensic expert, Dr. William Hart. Again and again, his eyes drifted toward the rearview mirror. The eye on his neck was growing. The skin around it was tearing, and a small mouth was beginning to form. Suddenly, that mouth spoke, in Brown's own voice, but layered with a feminine echo. "Where are you running, Edward? We are already inside you." Brown screamed and slammed his fist against the steering wheel. "Shut up. Just shut up." The car swerved, nearly losing control, but he managed to steady it. After about 40 minutes, he reached Dr. Hart's old bungalow. The rain was still pouring. He got out of the car and knocked violently on the door. When the door opened, Dr. William Hart, a 65-year-old man, looked at him in shock. "Edward, at this hour? What's happened to you?" Brown rushed inside and immediately shut the door. "William, I need your help. The body that came into the morgue tonight. Eva Christina, she wasn't normal." Dr. Hart asked him to sit. As Brown sat down, the eye on his neck became clearly visible. Hart's eyes widened. "For God's sake, what is that?" Brown explained everything. The reflection of his face in Eva's eye, the beating face inside her chest, Roger's transformation, and now this eye. Dr. Hart took a deep breath. "Edward, I saw a similar case last year, but it was covered up. The villagers said Eva was a vessel. She had surrendered herself to something ancient, something that transfers through dead bodies. They called it the shadow of flesh." Brown asked, "How can it be stopped?" Hart replied, "It must be completely burnt, every single part. But the most dangerous thing is anyone who cuts the body becomes part of it." At that exact moment, the mouth on Brown's neck spoke again. "William, you're already too late." Dr. Hart stepped back. From Brown's neck, a small head was now beginning to emerge. It was smiling. Hart quickly grabbed an old book from a cabinet and opened a specific page. "Edward, you have to cut your neck now. Otherwise, it will spread through your entire body." Brown looked at him in fear. "You'll do it." Hart nodded. "There's no other way." They both went into the bathroom. Hart made Brown sit on a chair and prepared a large surgical saw. The moment Hart began cutting, the small head on Brown's neck screamed, "We'll take you too, old man." Blood began to flow. Brown's screams echoed through the bungalow. As the cutting neared completion, a new sound emerged beneath the noise of the rain. A car horn. Hart looked out the window. Someone was sitting inside Brown's car, honking the horn. That person was Dr. Edward Brown, but his face was smiling. The real Brown, whose neck had been cut, lay unconscious on the chair. Outside, the other Brown stepped out of the car, soaked in rain, and slowly walked toward the door. He gently knocked. His voice came from outside. "William, open the door." "I'm home." Dr. Hart's face turned pale. He understood now. There wasn't just one Brown anymore. There were two. And inside, the real Brown, bleeding from his severed neck, suddenly opened his eyes and smiled. His smile was exactly like Eva Christina's doctor. William Hart's heart was pounding violently. In the bathroom, Brown, whose neck had been half cut, was now smiling. Blood and a thick black fluid were flowing together from his mouth. Outside, the knocking on the door continued. The other Brown, the one who had stepped out of the car, was standing in the rain, slowly banging on the door. "William, let me in. I'm the real one. That one is fake." With trembling hands, Hart shut the bathroom door and looked at the Brown inside. The one inside spoke softly. "He's lying, William. I'm the real one. He's the one who cut me." Both Browns had exactly the same voice. Hart took a deep breath and made a decision. He grabbed a shotgun from the cabinet and walked out. Standing near the door, he shouted, "Edward, if you're real, then tell me, what was the name of the boy in the first case we worked on together in 1998? From outside, the reply came instantly. His name was Charles, and worms were coming out of his body. Hart's hand trembled. The answer was completely correct. He began to open the door, but at that exact moment, a loud noise came from the bathroom. The Brown inside had stood up. From his half-severed neck, a new head was emerging, identical to the real Brown. The two Browns moved toward each other. Hart raised a shotgun and fired at the one inside. The blast tore open Brown's chest, but he didn't fall. Instead of blood, small faces began emerging from his chest. Faces of Eva, Roger, and Brown himself. The other Brown stepped inside. He was smiling. "William, you shot the wrong one. I'm the real one." Now both Browns began moving toward Hart in perfect synchronization. Stepping backward, Hart retreated into his study. He quickly grabbed the phone and dialed the hospital emergency number. "There's an infection spreading in the morgue. Send the fire brigade and police immediately." "The bodies have come back to life." A voice answered from the other side, but it was Eva Christina's voice. "Dr. Hart, we are already in the hospital. Now we are coming to your house." The call disconnected. Both Browns were now standing at the study door. One said, "William, you don't need to perform a postmortem." The other smiled and added, "We'll perform your postmortem ourselves." Hart reloaded the shotgun and fired again. Both Browns fell, but as they hit the ground, new heads began emerging from their bodies. Now there were 4 Browns. Panicking, Hart looked back. On his desk lay Eva Christina's postmortem report, the one Brown had brought. At the end of the report, it read, "Note, anyone who sees or touches this body will become part of it. The only way to stop it, burn it completely to ashes. But even the ashes are dangerous." Hart made his decision. He ran toward the shed behind the house, where his old incinerator was kept. But as he entered the shed, someone was already standing there. The figure turned. It was Dr. William Hart himself, smiling, with white, lifeless eyes. "You're too late, William. I transformed before you did." The real Hart raised his shotgun, but the other Hart lunged forward and grabbed his throat. Its fingers began digging into Hart's neck. At that exact moment, the sound of vehicles came from outside. Police and fire brigade had arrived. The fake Hart smiled and said, "Now the whole city will be ours. You were only the first step." Darkness began to fill Hart's vision. On his neck, a new eye was forming that a new eye had opened on Dr. William Hart's neck. The fake Hart was choking him when police and fire brigade vehicles arrived outside. Red and blue lights flashed through the rain. With his last strength, the real Hart pushed the fake one away and stumbled toward the incinerator inside the shed. His body was already changing. Beneath his skin, small faces were forming, smiling. From outside, Inspector James Thornton and Fire Chief Richard Henry rushed in. "Dr. Hart, what's happening here?" the inspector shouted. By then, Hart had reached the incinerator. He turned the machine on and tried to force himself inside. "Burn me!" Hart screamed. "Burn everything. Eva Christina, that thing, don't even leave the ashes." But it was too late. The shed door burst open. 6 Browns walked in, identical, all smiling. Behind them came Roger, Thomas, Michael, the 2 nurses, and now the fake Hart as well. Inspector Thornton raised his rifle. Everyone stepped back. "What is this madness?" One of the Browns stepped forward and said softly, "Inspector, join us. Postmortem is very enjoyable." The firefighters pulled out their hoses, but when they sprayed, wasn't water. A thick black fluid poured out, splashing over their bodies. Within seconds, eyes began forming on the necks of 3 firefighters. Inspector Thornton fired. Half of one Brown's head blew off, but he didn't fall. From the torn flesh, new heads began to grow. Hart had fully activated the incinerator. The heat was burning his body. He was screaming, but now there was a strange pleasure in that scream. "You will all burn," Hart shouted one last time. Suddenly, darkness swallowed the entire bungalow. When the lights came back, everything had changed. Inspector Thornton, the firefighters, and everyone else now looked the same. White eyes, smiling faces. Only one figure stood apart. The real Dr. Edward Brown, now fully transformed. He slowly walked toward the incinerator, where Hart's body was burning. Brown reached into the ashes. They were still hot. He picked up a handful and put it into his mouth. "We won't leave even the ashes," he said with a smile. Suddenly, the sound of many vehicles echoed from outside. More people from the hospital were arriving. Doctors, nurses, security guards, all wearing the same smile. Dawn was approaching. The sky over Chicago was turning faintly red. Brown, now completely transformed, stepped outside. Behind him stood over 100 people. On their bodies, small faces were forming, all smiling together. They all opened their mouths at once and released a horrifying, unified laughter that echoed into the sky. At 6 a.m., the north side of Chicago was completely silent. But inside every home, every person wore that same smile. In a small house, a 7-year-old girl asked her father, "Papa, why is the hospital closed today?" Her father smiled and replied, "Because today, everyone is having a postmortem, my daughter." The girl asked, "Mine too?" The father gently placed his hand on her head and said softly, "Yes, my child, yours too. Just wait. Dr. Brown will come to you soon." That night, In many morgues across Chicago, new bodies kept arriving. Every corpse had that same strange smile. And in the eyes of every single one, Dr. Edward Brown's face was staring back.